Hello and welcome to Talk a Good Game of West Ham's final friendly of the summer as we took on Man City. A club name couldn't be more aptly named as it was man against boys sometimes out on that pitch. But it's finished 3-0. Me and Charlie are here to have a quick chat about it and discuss who we think is the winners and losers of the squad over the whole summer. Charlie, it took just 8 minutes. It was it could have taken 3 minutes if it really wanted to, I think. But 8 minutes in, City went 1-0 up. I always say, show me a goal, I'll show you an error. I think on this one, you could probably point to about 3 errors.
Yeah, it's the most stereotypical West Ham thing. It was just what could have been such a simple just back pass and boot up the pitch, and then 3 errors later we're 1-0 down, and it was stupid. It was simple, and you could say that about more than one of their goals today.
Is it worrying, Charlie? I mean, this is almost every friendly we've had defensive errors. It's starting to worry you a little bit. I mean, it was only 8 minutes in, but when that goal happened, I thought, bloody hell, another, like you said, Hart's pass to Bona was a bit risky, but at the same time, I want to see our keeper play it out, so I don't want to criticise him too much, because that's a personal thing. Then Bona should see that Masuaku's got someone tearing up his arse, but he still gives it to him. He gets cut out. Then Font's standing in the middle 18-yarder, unaware where any striker is around him. Are you worried yet, or are you sort of writing it off because it's pre-season?
I'm no more worried than I was last season watching us do the exact same crap. It's the same stuff over and over and over again, and I don't understand, because all the players individually are good enough. They are. Like, you look at those players and you think, yeah, that's a good player, that's a good player, that's a good player, that's a good player. But for some reason, when you put them all together, they just don't. They seem to have zero defensive awareness of who's around them, what's going on. They consistently make stupid errors, and I don't get why that is. And I'm not more worried than I was, only because I've always been incredibly worried about it for like the last year.
Well, we went in at half-time, 1-0 Man City, and you might be thinking, why am I skipping to half-time already? Because there was literally nothing for West Ham to talk about. It's like one chance when Obiang played an absolute quality ball to Zabaleta. I think he picked out the wrong option when he gave it to Martinez. His header didn't touch the keeper at all, but we didn't get anywhere near Man City's half, Charlie, did we? The whole first half, we were sort of camped in our own box and stuff, and I mean, it is only pre-season. We are playing City, who have beaten Real Madrid and Spurs more convincingly, but there just seems to be a very lack of intent.
Yeah, and I think this pre-season friendly was always going to be that. We're facing an incredibly good Manchester City team, who are also an incredibly good Pep Guardiola team, who their whole MO is just to camp out outside that kind of game. But you're right, there was no happening. We never really saw us going that far forward, and it's one of my problems. I've brought this up time after time, and I don't want to be a broken record about it, but that 4-3-3 formation, just without having someone, a midfielder or say a second striker directly behind the striker, we just can't get forward well enough. And we saw that time after time. And so in a game like today, it would have been really good to have Andy Carroll on the pitch, just because then we had the option of bypassing their high press, play the ball over the top to him. I don't want to see it particularly. I don't want to see us play that sort of style of football. But if he was there, we can just chip the ball long to him, and he has the ability to control it and hold it, which in that first half, and this isn't a criticism of him, but Tony Martinez just isn't that type of player. He can't do that. And so this is the sort where I think we missed him, and why I want to keep him, because we could use that. But that first half was just Manchester City just, to our credit, we compressed well and defended relatively decently. We stopped creating too many chances. It was the errors that were the bigger problem.
3 subs at half-time for West Ham as Hernandez came on with Byram and Rice. Hernandez now has had just 60 minutes in a West Ham shirt pre-season before heading to Old Trafford next weekend. In the 61st, then it was 2-0 Aguero, but it was just superb football by Man City, Charlie. This is one of those goals, I think, sometimes you just have to say, well, the defender was a bit non-existent again. You have to say, I think, that goal was just art.
And they made it look easy. You know what I mean? Like, we could say it was too easy, and you could probably make the argument that it was, but to make it look that easy, that's world-class football. That's just one-touch football. It's just pick, pop, 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 simple ball into the box, bang. And it's something that it shows the gap in class between us and Manchester City. And that's not a dig against us. That's huge praise on their side, because that was fantastic football.
Yeah, I have to agree with that. World-class goal by world-class footballers. In the 61st minute, a bit worrying for West Ham, and this is something we're going to have to keep our eyes out on the next day or so, as Arnautovic went off injured. I thought it was cramp initially, but then he decided he was coming off injured, so that's a bit of a worry. 3-0, though, it was sort of coming again. I think everyone was just waiting for it. Raheem Sterling scored it. Shot blocked, looped up into the air in our 18-yarder. Font and Byron made half-hearted attempts to go for it. Fell to Sterling, volleyed it in nicely. Charlie, a lot of people go to Disneyland to see Mickey Mouse over the summer, but I think you could just watch West Ham defending if you want a little bit of Mickey Mouse, couldn't you?
That's probably the best way to describe it. You can't blame them too much, because it was Sterling just reacted quickest to the point where there was a minute or two where I was like, was he offside? Because he reacted that quickly to it. He is much faster than both Byram and Fonte, so the chances of them getting there anyway were few and far between. But like I say, it was half-hearted. You know, Fonte sort of meandered across. Byram sort of was looking at it for a bit too long. It was the defending for the rest of the game. It was just the same thing over and over again.
Well, possibly it should have been 3-1 as Ayew tackled Mangala just on the edge of 18-yarder and slotted it home, but it was disallowed by the linesman/referee, and it finished up 3-0. Charlie, overall, not just this game, but overall, are you worried, or are you just thinking it's pre-season? Under Avram Grant, I think we won pretty much every single game, then finished bottom of the league, getting humiliated week in, week out. So you can't read too much in. However, it's been a bit of a poor summer.
Yeah, the thing I say about preseason friendlies is that you can't draw conclusions, but you can draw insights. And there are worrying signs, but there are some positive ones as well. My biggest worry is that we continuously don't look that good going forward. Most preseason teams, when we play against crap teams, they're really happy to just sit deep and defend and then pop us on the counter-attack. And we don't seem to have that without Lanzini, especially, seem to have the ability to break those kind of teams down. And then when it comes to today, when we're facing a good team like Manchester City and they are constantly pressurizing us, we don't seem to have that counter-attacking flair which we've had in previous seasons. So, but again, it's my overriding feeling is it is just preseason, this is training, and there have been times where we've looked terrible in preseason and then in the first game we destroy it. So that's the sort of...
Yeah, I can see both sides of the coin. Part of me said it's pre-season, but part of me is looking at little things thinking, well, this is a bit worrying. The defence seems to be the same thing. Seem to have improved. I'm hoping we're only seeing a 50% Zabaleta, because Barry's first game, when he had a few touches of class, I've been a bit worried by him, actually. I think Byram's impressed me more over the summer, but I'm just hoping he's sort of conserving himself and sort of being a little bit switched on the fact that he's getting older now. He needs to sort of look after himself a bit more pre-season and sort of take it easy so that when it comes to Old Trafford, he's fully fit and ready to go. Is the lack of creativity worrying you, Charlie? No, it seems to be no Lanzini, no Partey.
It is, and I think it is. I'm not... A lot of people are saying, well, we need a backup to Lanzini. I think, for me, in my head, the backup to Lanzini would be playing two up front and having Ayew as a second striker, because I think he fulfills that role quite well. He can drop deep and link up play well. But my concern is that we don't seem to be gelling well enough as a team to be able to pull off slick passing manoeuvres. There were one or two times where we saw it this afternoon. There have been one or two times over the course of pre-season, but nowhere near frequently enough. And what Lanzini brings is just... we know for a fact he will be able to pick up the ball from deep, dribble past 2 or 3 or 4 players and then find a nice pass. We know he will do that. And when he's not there, it's that we're guaranteed to be able to have that same impact against the opposition.
Yeah, I'm worried about the creativity. It's not just creativity, it's responsibility as well. I don't think anyone's screaming for the ball. When we've got in our own third or even the middle third, there seems to be sort of people happy to just watch the play rather than get stuck in and get the ball. But I'm hoping it's just a pre-season thing. Maybe even someone that's come from Bilic saying, take it easy, don't go steaming in on this one. Make sure we're all fit for Old Trafford, because the injuries are starting to creep up on us already a little bit. Creswell and Reed and Lanzini all had to go back to England. Granted, Reed was because of his red card, but they're all creeping up. Joe Hart, though, tonight, Charlie, he impressed me.
I don't think he was that good. I think he I enjoyed hearing him shout at the defence, and I think someone with that experience, when Manchester City are doing corners or attacking, having someone with that experience to be able to yell at defenders and just make sure that they're completely aware of their surroundings. There were times, for example, when Fonte was running backwards and you could hear him shouting, check your shoulder, check your shoulder, check. Having that is really, really good, and that's really promising. But as an individual performance outside of his yelling, I don't particularly think he was that good. I think there was that one really good save he made from Silva, which ended up being a goal kick, which seemed like a save to me anyway. And there was one other save I can remember, but apart from that, I don't particularly think he had a great individual performance. But even if he's not having those great individual performances, I'm glad that he is loud enough, and like the amount of times where we saw Adrian say come out and there was a confusion between them, and I don't know whether it's because he's not shouting loud enough or the defenders aren't listening or what, but here the ball's up the other end of the pitch and we can still hear Joe Hart today. And so having that, even if he's not having a great game, is a really fantastic sign.
Yeah, I have to agree. I think his vocal, I mean, he's got a bit of potty mouth about him as well. But you heard him at one point when Roberts was going down the wing, you heard him screaming, you know, fucking take him down or something like that. And that's what you actually need. You actually need someone to say, you know, just take him out. If you don't let him go past you, take him out. And that's what you want from your keeper. Your keeper's your last line of defence. He should probably be your first line of authority when it comes to defending. Everybody should be communicating with him. So that's good to see. Who starts for you next Sunday, Charlie?
In goal specifically, you mean?
Yeah.
Still Adrian for me. I think he's had the better individual performances, and I think that's what we're going to need against Manchester United. But impressed me a lot today, and is building my confidence for him going forward. But for me, still Adrian.
Well, tomorrow, Saturday, West Ham play Spurs, under 23s behind closed doors, and Reed will be playing alongside Sacco. So do keep your eyes on the official site for that one. They might have some information how they do. We'll do this differently. Normally take your man of match at the end, but we'll do it before the end part. Charlie, who was your man of match for today?
It's a difficult one. There weren't many outstanding performances. Let's say Obiang, because I think he made some mistakes, but he was constantly in the right position. When defending, he was constantly in the right positions. He found himself more often than not intercepting balls a lot of the time, and a lot of his passing, as per usual, was absolutely fantastic. Not the best game he's had by any stretch of the imagination, but he played his role within that team really well, I think.
Yeah, I think there was a lot of poor performances out there tonight. I thought Masuaku had one of his poorer games in the summer. I thought both centre-backs were dodgy. I thought Zabaleta was poor. I thought Noble was poor again. He's worrying me really. But Obiang and Hart were the two that stood out for me. But I'll give it to Hart. I thought he played well actually. Charlie, then quickly then, not the youth players, because I'm going to ask you who's impressed you this summer. And I know fine, you're just going to mention the youth players. The youth players have impressed everybody. Senior players only. Who's impressed you this pre-season? Or anyone you think he's done well, like he deserves his chance?
Masuaku's probably the first name that comes into my head. I'm someone who has been. I always think Cresswell's better, and I still think Cresswell might be a better defender. But he's really impressed me, and I think that's going to be like even today. He did, like you say, he didn't have a great performance, but there were still times where he was causing Manchester City all kinds of problems down that left-hand side. And that's something that's vital in Premier League football. So he's impressed me. Obiang has continued to impress me. Fernandez, I don't know if you include him as a youth or a senior player. He's kind of somewhere in between, but he's been really good. And Arnautovic, I think, has been better than I expected, to be honest. I didn't expect a huge amount from him. I knew what he was about. I knew what kind of player he was. But he's been bullying people, and that's exactly what we need. We need someone to distract from the other rest of the team. And so his sort of big, huge frame and pulling, and he's got a bit more pace than I thought he had as well. So those were the ones I'm pick out.
Yeah, Obiang is a standout one for me this summer, him and Masuaku. But Obiang, to me, some games it looks like he's putting in minimum effort, but he's looked class. His touches and his passes has just looked like, when you do it without looking like you're putting in effort, you know you're a good footballer. And him and Masuaku have had that little touch. What about Warriors, Charlie? Is there anyone that you've been thinking, crikey, is this guy sort of just not trying because it's pre-season, or is he just bang out of form?
Robert Snodgrass still. I want him to do well. I'm desperate for him to do well, and I don't want to harp on it because everyone goes on about it. But he just doesn't do anything. There was like one pass today where I was like, oh, and then the rest of the time it was like, there's Rob Snodgrass again. Outside of that, to backs look predictably as per usual. Like I say, my worry with them is just they're individually good enough, but for some reason they don't seem to gel, and that's a huge worry for me.
Yeah, I think for me it's Zabaleta, but I'm just hoping it's just because he's not trying yet. He's looking after himself. But the other one's actually Noble. I think he's looked quite crap in all the preseason games, really. But again, I'm hoping it's because we've only got 2 senior centre midfielders, if you like, Kent Old Trafford. But on the other hand, it's not stopping Obiang from churning out decent performances, is it? So those 2 are the ones that are worrying me. Anyway, you guys at home, let us know who's impressed you this pre-season. You can include the youth players. I'm not letting Charlie do it because we've been praising Rice and Holland all summer. Also, is there anyone that's worrying you? Also, do you take pre-season seriously or do you just write off completely? A lot of people say it's about fitness only, but I'm not even sure that we're looking that fit going into next week. Well, certainly injury-wise, we're not. But that's been Charlie, I've been Geo. Drop a like on the video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you're new around here. Come on to our forum at hammerschat.com. We've got plenty of videos coming out before we play Man U, and we'll be live straight after the Man U game with our review for our first game of the Premier League season. Thank you for joining us.